How's it going, everybody? My name is Warner Fields with Fields of Profit. I'm a full-time high six-figure Amazon seller, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you exactly how you can avoid IP complaints for your Amazon business. I know this is a very hot topic, especially for you new sellers, because if you go in and get an IP complaint right when you first start, it really can lead to some headaches and some trouble with your Amazon account. So I'm going to be showing you some ways to avoid this within your Amazon business. And I know a lot of you beginner sellers are very scared of IP complaints, but using the methods in this video, honestly, these are the exact things I do in my own business to help avoid IP complaints, and I've only had about 2 IP complaints over the whole last 12 months using these strategies, selling thousands and thousands of products on Amazon. So it's really not as big of an issue as a lot of people try to make it out to be. So we're going to be covering those exact strategies today. Before we do that, if you haven't already checked it out, or if you're brand new to the channel, go ahead and check out the link down below to our completely free Amazon seller Discord community. Over 16,000 people in there, all kinds of great free information. Most people would probably try to charge you for a group like this, but we're giving it away for free. So go ahead and check that resource out if you want to learn more about selling on Amazon. But let's go ahead and jump into the video. Alright, so first up, I want to show you the absolute easiest way to avoid IP complaints on your account, and it's really just using this Chrome extension right here that just popped up. It's called IP Alert. There's a lot of other fancier things I'll go ahead and show off here in just a second, but before we dive into the advanced methods, if you are seriously concerned about IP complaints and you don't have IP Alert, please go get it. It's like $200 lifetime, $100 a year, or there's going to be a code down below. Use FOP for 30 bucks off. I would recommend buying this right away. If I had to restart my Amazon business, I would probably get this tool just because it will set you back so much and it'll discourage you if you get IP complaints from the get-go. And I really think this tool is how I've been able to avoid pretty much all of the IP complaints that I would have potentially had. So highly recommend this tool. But basically how it works is anytime you go to a brand where the product is problematic, the brand has filed IP complaints against other people using this tool. The reason this tool is so cool is because there's such a large database of users submitting certain brands that they've had problems with that by this point there's a ton of different brands that we know to avoid. For example, Kong is an infamous brand to avoid selling on Amazon because they will give you an IP complaint. And you can see as you open up this listing, it's going to give you a little pop-up here. You're gonna have to press OK, and it's also going to show you a little siren here right underneath the Amazon title. All that to say, go get IP Alert. It will help you protect your business, and it's probably the simplest of these methods. So moving on to the more complicated methods, and these are things that I also do in tandem with using IP Alert, because IP Alert isn't perfect. It's got a large database, but I want to be super certain when I'm selling products that I'm not going to have any problems. So this product right here is a product that I was considering buying. I was looking at it when it looked something like that, so it didn't have that recent sellers going down low, which makes it a little bit worse of a product. But I saw this product, I think I was able to buy it for like $4 or $5. It was selling for $14. Looked good, but when I go out and zoom out to the year, I noticed this was going on. So this is a really big red flag on any listings. So essentially what I'm looking for when I see a pattern like this is to see if the brand itself has sold this product in the past. And typically if it's got a buy box, if it's very cheap compared to what you'd be able to buy it for and sell it for, if the price line is super flat. So in this case, we're getting all those red flags that this product might have been sold by the brand in the past. And if the brand has sold it in the past, there's a good chance they might come back onto the listing, come back on and delete all the other sellers off the listing, which is well within their right as a brand. If you ran a brand and wanted to sell that brand on Amazon, you'd probably kick all the other resellers off that listing too. You just want to preserve the listing quality there. So what I noticed when I saw this was that the brand may be selling this in the past, but they're not currently on the listing, right? So one thing I like to look for just in general is to see if the brand itself is selling on this product. So in this case, I'm looking at the new sellers and I'm trying to see if their storefront names by chance match the brand name. So in this case, I'd be looking for Radius. In this case, none of these storefronts are called Radius, so that was not an immediate red flag. But seeing what I saw on the Keepa chart, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to data, and then I'm going to go to buy box statistics, and then I'm going to look at the last 365 days, and this is going to show me what percentage of the buy box all the sellers on the listing have gotten within the last year. And in this case, we can see the Radius Corp, 74% of the buy box over the last year has gone to them. That is the brand, which then makes me worried that they might try to come back on this listing, create IP complaints for myself and the other sellers on this listing. And in this case, this was also kind of a combo lesson here. It was also on a variation listing, which does make it easier. So if you just click to a different listing, you can see that the Radius Corp is on that color, but for whatever reason, maybe they're having some supply chain issues. They're not on the blue listing right now, but I can almost guarantee you that they're coming back on this listing if they haven't already. This is the last products Keepa chart, but I would have to imagine imagine that if you tried to sell this product, even though it is fairly profitable right now, I think it was almost 100% ROI, 60% ROI, something like that. But even if you had tried to sell this product, if Radius comes back on that listing, they're probably going to give you an IP complaint, and then you've got a headache to worry about. So there's one thing to look out for. The next product I want to go ahead and look at, you can see this one was actually showing up on IP alert. This last one was not, which is why having some different methods to reference is going to be really important. So looking at this Medline product, we had it on IP alert. We would have known right away if we had IP alert. But one thing that I like to look out for, in this case, it looks like very recently the number of sellers has gone way up. So maybe they're kind of getting a little bit more lax. Maybe you could experiment with selling this brand since they haven't seemed to be kicking sellers off since about January. But one thing that I wanted to kind of point out on this listing, and you'll probably see this quite a bit, is let's say we're looking at this listing back in January, and I'm seeing that the recent new offer counts on here have been between 1 to 2 to 3, all the way, a max of 4. Back in the past, it was a little bit more sellers, but it was a little bit more stable. So when I see a new sellers chart that looks like this tells me that it's probably a controlled wholesale listing of some kind, because they're only allowing a certain number of sellers. In this case, there's only 1 to 4 sellers on here, which is a telltale sign that they have just a couple wholesale accounts that they work with. And if you're not one of those approved wholesale accounts, you might catch an IP complaint. But like I said, so recently the new number of new sellers has been really increasing, and back in the past there was quite a few new sellers trying to sell this product. So this one's a bit more borderline. It's not really a dead giveaway, but that's just one other thing to look out for. If you see the number of new sellers being controlled very, very low for a long period of time, in this case I would consider like September to January a decently long period of time, especially in the Amazon world. Looks like this listing was controlled for a little bit. Maybe they've given up recently, but go ahead and be sure to look out for that in the future. This next product is an example of another one where we can see that IP alert is right away warning us. We would know right away to avoid this listing. But beyond that, let's say that this brand slipped through IP alert somehow. We would go ahead and look at the new sellers chart down here, and you'll notice there's a very weird pattern going on here where a bunch of new sellers comes onto the listing, and then just in one day it goes down to 2, and then some new people come back on, it goes down to 3, and then a bunch come back on, we're down to 1. So you could look at this and you could say, wow, it sold really, really hot that day. But that doesn't make sense if you compare that with what's going on the Keepa chart. So you can see the sales rank stayed consistent, the price stayed consistent. The only thing that changed was the number of new sellers absolutely fell off a cliff. And if you're not familiar with the process, once you get an IP complaint, you're not going to be able to sell that product until you appeal it, which this tells me that this product almost certainly had a bunch of IP complaints. Looks like they're giving out IP complaints every like 10 days or so. I wonder if it's on a calendar here. So this one was on the 11th, 22nd, the 1st. There might be some kind of a pattern to their brand protection here, not an easily identifiable one, but we can see right away that this new sellers dropping off like that, dropping off a cliff, means that they were just giving out bulk IP complaints to anyone who's not on their approved reseller list. So definitely stay away from products where you see massive drops like that on the Keepa chart, and you can see it's still happening on a smaller scale. So you can see it went up to 6, down to 1, up to 5, down to 1 again. So definitely stay away from products where there's a large drop off on the number of new sellers here. And then this last example here is another example where it might be a bit borderline. So in this case, IP alert is not telling us specifically that this product might be problematic. Looks like we're getting a green check mark from IP alert, but I always like to double check all of these things that I'm talking about. So let's go through the checklist. So I see here, number 1, over a decent period of time, it looks like the number of sellers be fairly controlled. That's a kind of a telltale sign of maybe a controlled wholesale product where they're wholesaling it to just a couple brands or just a couple Amazon storefronts. It looks like recently the number of new sellers is increasing a little bit, but that could just be maybe a coupon deal. Some sellers jumped on who might later get an IP complaint. But the dead giveaway to me here is this super flat price line. Anytime you see a super flat price line like this tells me that someone is getting a crazy percentage of the sales just because they're not having to change the price. So if they're not having to change the price to drive more sales, they're either private label or they are a massive wholesale seller who's either going to give you an IP complaint, or even if they're not going to give you an IP complaint, if you see a super flat price line like this, you might not be able to get any sales, which could be even worse depending on how you want to look at it there. So specifically, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the buy box statistics on this offer, and we can see over the last 365 days that this one seller who has a ton in stock has gotten 90% of the sales on this listing, which is not a dead giveaway that it is a private label product, but it is a giveaway that we're probably not going to be able to sell this product anyway, just because that this seller is hogging the buy box so much. We could also filter by last one here. It looks like a couple sellers are getting a couple sales trickling in here, but I would be a little bit worried about an IP complaint on this listing. And And like I said, even if it's not an IP complaint, you might struggle to sell a lot of this product. So always look out for flat price lines, and then go ahead and jump into buy box statistics and look at the buy box 1 percentage. That's going to show you if any major sellers are on this listing hogging buy box, whether or not they're wholesale private label. Just stay away from the listings where someone's hogging a lot of sales like that. So if you do, go ahead and keep these lessons in mind. Go ahead and get IP alert. Again, there's a coupon code for that down below. That also helps support the channel. If you do all that and you still get an IP complaint, it's bound to happen. Stuff's going to slip through your methodology. It's going to slip through IP alert. None of those systems are absolutely perfect. But if you do end up getting an IP complaint, you're going to need to write a plan of action to Amazon, and usually they're going to want to see some form of documentation. Actually, as of late, retail receipts have been working more and more for this process. So that's honestly a big burden off my shoulders. I know it's something a lot of us have to worry about, especially at massive scale, is that a couple IP complaints could really cause some problems for you. But I really like to see that some receipts have been working lately. Submit those off to Amazon. Prove to Amazon that you bought it from legitimate sources. They just want to see that you're not, manufacturing fake stuff in China. As long as you can submit those receipts, sometimes you're going to have to wait for the right customer service rep, which is the case even if you've done nothing wrong, right? So I know a lot of people are heavily concerned about IP complaints, the risk it poses for your business, but I've seen some horror stories of even people who have massive private label brands doing everything all to the T, all following the rules, still getting their account removed. So at the end of the day, we're in Amazon's playground. There's always going to be problems, but you can do a lot of things to help mitigate those risks using those tools we've showed off in the video. I hope you guys got a ton of value out of this video. If you did, please feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I'd really appreciate that. That helps out the channel. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to drop those down below as well. But I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next time.